I thought we might get some.
Okay. There we are. All right. Cooperative Legacy Project interview number 50. August 18th, 2006. We're visiting with Eunice Jones, former South Dakota Rural Electric Association and South Dakota Association of Cooperatives staff member.
That's right. Oh, yeah. See, that's right. Way back. 51. Or do you have it down there?
I don't have it down here, but I will in the questions later on, because I got some of your background out of Paul Hoffey's book.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that was helpful to know what to ask you.
Yeah, okay. I was going to show that to you, but you've got it. So.
Yeah, he sent me a copy of it. I worked with, for a couple of years, I worked with Rick, his son.
Oh, I see, yeah.
When and where were you born?
Oh, when and where?
We go way back.
Yeah, Day County, South Dakota, and in 1919, 9:30.
Okay. And
Pierpont was the town.
Pierpont, okay.
You know that? You've probably never heard of that.
Yes, I have.
Have you?
Our county president is from there, Franklin Olson.
Oh, See, it's practically not in existence anymore, that's why.
Yeah.
But I grew up really in Langford.
What was your father's name?
Walter Larson.
What sort of person was he? You want to talk about him a little bit?
He was a farmer. He really didn't want to be a farmer, but in his early life, he had a disease in his eyes, which kept him from being an accountant, which he had kind of trained for. And my grandpa had a farm, excuse me, and as it is, it was natural then for my dad to go on with the farm, and they lived out there, and I can't remember the years now, but and he was by the way, he was turned out to be a good farmers union member too. In the early days. Yeah, a lot of his relatives thought he was kind of a reprobate.
Oh, really? Okay. What was your mother's name?
Ebba.
Okay.
Ebba.
What was her maiden name?
Paulson.
Paulson.
She was born in Sweden.
Okay.
And she came over on the boat with her mother and I think it was 7 other kids. And Grandpa and the older boy had already come over and settled in, I think it was in Day County, but I can't remember for sure. But it was in that area.
A lot of Scandinavians
up
there.
Yeah, that's right. And my grandmother came from royalty. And she ran off with with Grandpa, who was a butcher bartender. And this was kind of strange. And then she came over here, and she was always a great person.
Okay.
Never went back, of course,
Back in those days, seldom did they go back at all.
No, they couldn't, really. It's like my mother, I can remember her telling that she was 13, and she cried all the way over because she had to leave her best friend.
Sometimes the next generation or two maybe makes a trip back.
Yeah. Some of them did. That's true.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah. I had a sister who was dead and 2 brothers, and one's still alive. He lives in the Colorado area.
Okay, what's his name?
Richard Larson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there were a lot of Larsons up around Langford.
That's right. And it's strange, we lived in an area, I always tell people this, that I can just see it. One road was all Danes, one road was Norwegians, and one was Swedes. And I had my very best friend during grade school days was a Norwegian, and she was a Larson. But that's the way it was.
Did they tend to get along with each other?
Oh,
or was
yeah.
there a little bit of friction?
I I don't know. There might have been a little animosity, but not.
You know, I had a college advisor who was a Swede in a community of Norwegians, and he kind of chuckled about it, but he said there was some discrimination against the Swede.
Oh, I suppose they would call it that. Yeah, that's right. Right? Yeah.
What are some of your early memories from there? I suppose it would be in maybe what? You remember anything from the 1920s?
Yeah, when I can remember when I first started school.
Okay.
We lived. We were right on the dividing line of Marshall and Day County, and all my friends were in Marshall County because we belonged to the Lutheran Church. They're Highlander Lutheran, and they went to we called it the Swede school. But when I started school, I had to go to the Norwegian school, which was in Day County, see. And I would take a good lunch because my mother always packed a good lunch, and I'd go to this school of all Norwegian boys, I always said, and they'd steal my lunch. And I would pack up all my stuff at the end of the day, I remember, and I was never going back, and my dad would come and get me. And that was another thing. See, I didn't walk like the others, and he would take me and come and get me, you know. But I went back, and pretty soon everything worked out all right. And I really loved that country school. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then went on to high school in Langford.
Okay. And what was that like?
It was fine. Mm-hmm.
How many kids were going to Langford? I don't know, just whether Langford has a high school anymore, do they?
Yeah, they still do
they
because
still
they had this. They happened to build a building, see,
yep.
And that took care of it up there in that area. That's well, I can't remember exactly how many there were, but I think our class, when I started in the freshman class, probably about under 20 maybe. Mm-hmm. I've kind of forgotten that for sure. But it was a basic, pretty good education, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I like commercial work, so that's what I tried to take everything in that.
Mm-hmm. What was life like out on the farm in those days?
Well, I can say this. We always had something to eat. But there were a lot of them that didn't. I can remember these kids coming to school that just very little to eat, and but we happened to, I guess, just were fortunate. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would have been during the 30s.
Yeah.
The 20s, were they a little bit better on the farm there when you
were
20s, very small? Yeah.
Yeah. See.
Prices maybe not too good, but.
Yeah, I would say it was better. Yeah, in the 20s in our particular case. Mm-hmm. The 30s were the bad years, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have a lot of dust storms up there in Hay County?
Yeah. My mother would put wet rags in the windowsills. Isn't that funny? We were talking about that the other day, another group, and it's funny how you remember certain things. Yeah. Then my dad would go out and put the crops in, and they'd blow away, and it was bad. Mm-hmm. And then I think they finally ended up with some government help. Now I'm not quite sure about that, but and they got through okay. Then he went into trucking and left the farm.
Oh, and what year would that have been?
Well, that was after I left, I think. Yeah. And
you left, what year would that have been?
Well, let's see. I have to stop and think.
Right out of high school?
Yeah, it would have been right out of
37 high school. Maybe, or 38?
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then I went to Aberdeen Business College. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you ever heard of Goldie Wells, who was Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Well, she happened to be a friend of my dad's. and I think he worked politically with her, and so she got me through her influence. I got a job in the Attorney General's office in Pierre, and that was my first job. Yeah.
Okay, who was the Attorney General then?
Clara Rodewig.
Okay.
It was when the Democrats were in.
Oh, okay. Okay. I almost never thought of that as a possibility.
Yeah, I know.
So rare in South Dakota. Okay.
Like I said, my dad had been working for the party at the time, and that's how this all happened, I guess.
Okay. Well, we're going to touch on a couple or three other issues here as we get around to back to what you were doing at the Attorney General's office. Wanted to ask you if you all had a particular view on Franklin Roosevelt and the administration.
Oh, my dad was gung-ho for Roosevelt. He'd always came from a long line of Republicans, and that's what switched him. Mm-hmm. And I always say that I went to work for the Farm Security Administration and then Rural Electrics, and he was influential there as well as Social Security. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Do you think? I guess I've asked this of a number of other people I've interviewed. The question was suggested by a member of my advisory committee. You think that Scandinavians have a special affinity for being involved in cooperatives?
Oh, I think probably. Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe that comes from their homeland in a way, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true.
Okay. So you went to work for the Attorney General in about, what, 1938, 39?
Yeah, I'd say 37 or 30
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like working in the Attorney General's office in those days? What were they... Well, I'm guessing it wasn't maybe quite as heavily staffed as it is today.
No. Well, there were... it's not funny. I can see the office, Rodewig's office was straight ahead. I happened to be the receptionist, and then I did take shorthand, so I had to take a lot of minutes for meetings and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then we had, I think it was called the DCI department was in there, and there were probably, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 attorneys.
Okay.
As I remember. I mean, that's close to it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And from there, you went to the Farm Security Administration?
Mm-hmm, in Huron.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Rodewig was beat out in the election.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it was the administration change.
Yeah, that's right. And so then I went to Huron, and that was new for me. And we had to take really a cut in salary because there just wasn't anything around. Mm-hmm. And I liked Huron at that time. We were in the post office building. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would this have been the County Farm Service Agency office or the
state office?
The state one, the statewide one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's where I worked. Yeah.
Okay. Who was the director then?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask, and I can't think of his name. I can see him. Isn't that terrible? He'll probably come to me after you leave.
I know Emil Lorix held that position.
Yeah, well, he was next. He followed.
Was next.
McMillan.
Okay.
Yeah, that was his name.
Okay. Okay.
Down in the basement of the post office.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you work for Emil then too, or no? Or did you stay there long enough?
No.
Okay. But I imagine he had some interest in what was going on there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go back and catch a couple of questions. Just these are more generalized questions, and I'm afraid if I keep going forward, I'm not going to remember to ask them. You remember what you were doing on December 7th of 1941? You remember that at all?
Yeah, I was. Let's see.
Were you still?
I was married in 1939.
Okay.
and we were in Huron.
All right.
And I was still working. Yeah.
Okay. And your husband's name?
Reagan. His name was really Lyle Reagan Jones.
Okay. Okay. Where was he from?
Oh, he was born in Wetonka, up in the Brown County area. I guess it's Brown County. Yeah. And then his folks moved to Huron. Well, his dad had a car repair shop in Wetonka, and the times were hard. I remember hearing this. And their daughter was going to college in Huron, so they moved to Huron. And and then he went. That's right. He Logan was his name. Went to work for Urquhart's, and that's where they lived the rest of their lives. Well, they came out here after we moved out here, but not a short time.
Okay.
And my mother-in-law had a kind of a rooming house right on 3rd Street, which was right close to the fairgrounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's still some larger homes.
Yeah,
there,
right. I think theirs has been demolished.
Oh. Okay.
And then Dad Jones had, I think it was 5 cabins right along the west side that he kept rented. And that was their livelihood at that time, besides him being at Urquhart's. Yeah. They were real workers.
Yeah, State Fair, a big thing back in those days.
Oh, yeah. Now it's kind of dwindling, isn't it? Yeah.
So, when you were at the Farm Security Administration, what were they doing in those days? They were pretty much that the predecessor
loaning.
of the Farmers Home Administration later.
Yeah, later. Yeah. Yeah.
And now
it was loans to farmers, really. I mean, basically.
Yeah, helping to keep people or getting reestablished after the
drought and all
the
that.
bankruptcies and foreclosures of the 30s. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good program, really. Yeah.
What was the attitude of the people you worked with there? It seems like in the 1930s, at least as I perceive it from being a baby boomer,
Sure.
that there was a lot of idealism back then for what they were doing, knowing what they had been through in the 1930s, and trying to make things better. Did you find that the case with the Farm Security Agency people in South Dakota?
I think so.
Believed in what they were doing rather than just doing a job?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Okay. How long did you work there?
I have to stop and think about that. And then the war came up, and my husband had moved to California.
Oh.
And he got a job in the shipyards.
Yeah.
And so it was just natural for me to go out there. So then I went out and worked, not in the shipyards, but in, just a minute, I'll think of it, Douglas Aircraft.
Oh, okay. So you went to work in an air.
Uh-huh.
You were a riveter, were you, or no?
No. I did. I typed on a typewriter that was this long. I always say, and you couldn't. If you had an error, you had to scrape the error out with a steel brush or knife, and it was just different,
Conserving paper, huh?
Yeah, and it was all figures, and I hated the job, but finally I got into the shipyards, and I liked that. It was in personnel. And
okay. Now, did you work out there throughout the war years?
No. Then Jonesy went in the service.
Okay.
So then I came back to Huron.
All right.
And that's how we came back to this area.
Okay. What branch of the service was he in?
He was just a plain GI. He had to go in the day peace was declared.
Oh.
Yeah, in August, wasn't it? Not
Yeah.
awful. I kind of forget. that.
VJ Day?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But he had to stay in, see, for a year or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but when did you come back to Huron then? Or go back to Huron?
Yeah,
since
I know.
you're not in Huron then?
Well, let's see. It must have been 45.
Okay. So you were out there for what, about 3 years?
Yeah,
on the
maybe.
coast?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. We lived in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, we went back on a trip one time and it was interesting to see the old house we'd had. We rented it from a lady and it was still there. But she was gone, of course, but only 2 blocks from the ocean.
Mm.
Ideal property now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of valuable property
Yeah,
down there
right.
these days.
Yeah.
Lots of people could be rich if they
I know.
had known what to invest
Yeah,
in.
right. That's right.
Did you go to work for the Association of Cooperatives when you came back to Huron, or
Yeah, right.
was that your first job?
Yeah, I think I have to stop and think about that. Yeah, must have been with Walt Lassen.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great guy.
Okay.
And then, see, the rural electrics were just in formation, sort of.
Mhm.
And I can remember when I went to work for Walt, he said, you know, I've been approached by Al Hoffey, and when they can get their blocks in order, he said, we'll set up an office. So that's what we did, right
Okay.
in the bank building in Huron.
Mm-hmm. What was the association doing in those days? There were a lot of co-ops that were just getting started.
Yeah, and it's more formation.
Mm-hmm. Was there a
I wasn't there that long, you know.
Okay. Well, there was a kind of a close association in those days with the Farmers Union, which was also
Yeah.
located in Huron. Well, they weren't in Huron yet. In those days, they were down in Mitchell, weren't they?
Yeah,
There
I
they
think,
were.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. I'd
They
forgotten
didn't move
that.
to Huron until 1952
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Okay, I should know that.
Well, no, I think you do real well.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you want to talk about Lawson a little bit?
Who, Lassen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of a guy was he?
He was just a great fellow. He was too good, really, in some ways, because people, as I remember, took advantage of him. But that's just the way Walt was, you know. Then he left, you know, and went. Now I can't think of the name of the company. Oh, they sold poles or something to people, I think, as I remember.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I was acting manager when he
Mhm.
left.
Was it pretty common? Did most of the when you were at the Association of Co-ops, did most of the co-ops in the state belong to the association at that time?
I think they did, as I remember.
I think later on it got to be that necessarily wasn't the case.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the rural electrics, we didn't have too much of any problem. We
Mhm.
always had this little bit of east and west problem.
Yeah.
But then when Dale Gibbs came in as manager, he had a way of keeping them together. Of course, you always had your little East River and West River division, but they ironed it out some way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What sort of during those earliest days, what sort of activities was the SDREA doing
Oh,
once you get there?
yeah, it was educational,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that was the main thrust, of course, and then we got into job training and safety,
Mm-hmm.
which was a big deal. And excuse me, and that I would say kind of kept the association together, because you needed that backbone or whatever.
Okay. I interviewed here last week. Yeah, Jim Kiley.
Oh yeah, Jim.
And
Yeah.
he was involved with some of that
Oh
safety
yeah.
training stuff.
How's he doing? I haven't.
Pretty good.
Is
Pretty
he?
good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Does he still live in the Coleman area or? No, Sioux Falls.
Yeah, he's in Sioux
Yeah,
Falls.
that's right.
Near the golf courses off of
Oh yeah, he was.
Minnehaha Country Club.
Yeah,
and
he's a
in
big golfer,
condominium.
or he was anyway.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Farms and ranches were kind of still in the process in the early 50s of being hooked up with electricity yet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't all. I suppose further west was it slower?
I would say yes. They're
Out there
farther
in the ranch
apart.
country.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
Costs more to hook them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was a wonderful change for people when they.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, it was one of the best programs in the world. Yeah.
Did you get a chance to? You had a kind of a joint publication with East River.
Yeah.
And it started out being called the Sioux Empire Builder.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's right. I kind of forgot that.
And Harlan Severson was the editor.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know Harlan?
Oh yeah, knew him real well.
You want to talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
I interviewed him last year.
Oh really?
In Rapid City.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything from even about Harlan lately, but he's doing okay, I think.
He had a stroke here.
That's right.
Yeah. And
there were a bunch of past Rural Electric employees, and he wasn't involved in the group, but they called me one night from Rapid City, and they mentioned that Harlan didn't come because he'd had a stroke. That's too bad.
It still was a very good interview, but his speech is very slow, and it's harder to listen to.
Sure.
But he has some great stories.
Oh yeah, he would have.
Now he worked in those days. The publication was done out of the East River office.
Yeah.
Now when did they split those? Because later on there was the East River Guardian.
And then
the Highliner was kind of out here.
Yeah.
And when I say out here, when did you folks move from Huron to Pierre?
We have the new building down there on the corner. I always said.
Oh, okay.
Well, what year was that? 60 something, 59 or 60.
Okay.
Right in there. I can't remember the exact date or anything. But I remember the dedication. It was a hot day.
It's almost any day in the summer.
Well, and of course, there was a lot of controversy on that. I mean, moving out here,
Oh, okay.
They want, a lot of us wanted to stay in here, and I did kind of, but I could tell that it had to be here because it's legislature and more central, you know what I mean, for east and west. And we had one employee, Florine Plummer, who didn't want to move out here at all, and I can remember she cried. But she came, and then she died out here. That's part of life.
Was that part of the little bit of difference that always exists between the East and West River folks that maybe
with her
felt like maybe the office should be in Pierre rather than in Huron?
Yeah, I think maybe that was it, to keep it away from the East.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
To what extent were you interested? Of course, in the 1950s, and there's a major concern is sources of power for electricity, whether it's building the hydroelectric dams and getting that, or I suppose at some point they're coal-fired plants.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Yeah.
Ended up doing.
Yeah. They had a lot of meetings on that. I can remember that. what to do, and you go over this. And of course, Leo P. Flynn was a great leveler, They'd get into we'd have a all-state meeting probably to make a big decision on something, and then they'd get into a squabble, and all I can remember, I was always the recorder for the meetings, and all Leo had to do was ruffle around a little bit, and he'd say, "Okay, gentlemen, now let's do this or that," and he'd help them make a decision.
Sometimes decisions slow to come by, or debate.
Yeah, it took a while. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd have this little feeling,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of it.
You mentioned Al Hoffey. You want to talk about him a little bit? He was the president during some of those years, 50s and 60s too?
He was the great president, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of feeling there from the West, because Al had been president for so long, and then he was on the NRECA board, and he was just a great fellow. I just thought an awful lot of him. And I gave Leo credit for a lot, but then Al was the one who kept things going too. And I'll say this, I had to be the one to tell him to step down. I'll never forget the day, because I could feel it was coming. And it was right down here at the Holiday Inn, and I went down one day and I said, "Al, I just, as a friend, hope that you will step down, because," I said, "they're after you." And he thanked me, and he did. And he had already selected one or two people that he thought would be good to follow. And Bill Schutte, I think, was always, Bill Schutte, and then Herman Holt followed him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was a great fellow. Yeah.
Walter Lawson left in, about 1959, I think the book says, anyhow.
Yeah.
And Dale Gibbs was hired to replace him.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about Dale?
Oh, yeah, he's a great. He knew how to lead, and I mean, he did. And they followed him. And he worked well out here with the legislature. Dale was a different type person, but he was just right for the time. And but then he knew too when it was time to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when he went to Alabama or Arkansas. I can't remember which one he went to first.
Okay. How big was the staff during those years, besides you and Dale?
Let's see. Well, we had the publication, Florine Plummer,
Mm-hmm.
and then JT&S people. And let's see. I have to stop and think. Who else was there? Oh, a couple of the gals, but I can't even remember which ones they were now.
And there were a couple of periods when you served as interim director. You want to talk about
Manager.
that? Or interim manager?
Yeah, 4 times.
4 times?
Yeah.
Wow.
Between 4 different ones, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when I said, this one director said, if you weren't a woman, Eunice, he said, you would be the manager. I always remind Audrey of that.
What were the important issues for SDREA during the 1950s, or 60s, I should say?
Well,
And when you and Gibbs are working together?
it was always a lot of legislation.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that was probably one of the bigger things. And Dale was good in working with the legislators and getting stuff through and all that.
Mm-hmm. That was an important job for the state manager. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, this is kind of a little sideline. Dale and V.T. Hanlon in East River, well, they were too much alike. They were both leaders, but different types. V.T. was a soft-spoken type of person, where Dale was more robust and a doer, And East River, of course, at that time didn't care whether there was a statewide or not. They just could do on their own, In fact, V.T. asked me once he said, "Why don't you come down and work for us? And we don't need the statewide." And I said, "No, I can't do that." That's the way it was. Well, he was a great guy. And he and his wife are both dead now.
Who is?
V.T.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they died, pretty close together, as I remember.
Mm-hmm. Hamlin had a heart attack while out fishing.
Yeah,
Is that the story?
It was strange, yeah.
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 About, 1969?
I don't know, I've forgotten just exactly when that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you worked with Gibbs throughout the 60s?
Yeah.
And when did he leave then?
Well, towards the end of the 60s, and then, let's see, I think he went to Arkansas then. We were even down there one time, because I helped him set up his filing system.
Okay, what was he working for the...
Statewide.
Statewide down there, okay.
Yeah, he felt he had to get out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm. You keep in touch with him?
Oh, yeah. He called me the other day, in fact. We still have contacts all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was real close to their family because they had a retarded boy, Mitch, and I helped Dale take him to Redfield, to the school up there. That was a sad thing, because his wife didn't want to do this, but they had to do something, and yeah.
Okay.
Jenny, and she's in kind of a assisted living place in Alabama. Yeah.
Dale, does he get up here much, or does
No.
he not anymore?
Now, well, their son is still in Chamberlain.
Oh.
The retarded boy, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he called the other day, and he said he wasn't going to make the trip up this year because just couldn't do it. And so he said, "I'll have to wait till another year and see if I can do it." And his one son just retired as assistant attorney general in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And he said maybe then he and John could come up together.
Mm-hmm. So you once again are interim
Manager.
Manager, and the next manager is John Olson. Would that be right?
Oh yeah, God, I'd almost forgot. Yeah, and that wasn't too long a stint.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of a sideline, but he wanted to run for governor, or the Republican Party wanted him to run, because John was a nice guy, but he wanted to take a leave of absence from SDREA.
And run?
See. And I said, he came over at the house and asked me about it, and he said, "Would you step in then?" And I said, "John, the only way I do it is if you resign." I said, "It's just not right." So he did, but that was it.
Okay, what year would that have been? Do you remember?
Well, isn't that funny? Kind of blank right now.
Had he been in politics before he?
Yeah, well, he was.
SDREA job?
Yeah, he was in highway department.
Oh, okay.
Head of head or whatever they were called. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nice guy. I think he's still alive out in the hills.
Okay.
His son is an attorney out there.
Okay. Was he pretty strongly committed to the program?
To what?
Was he pretty strongly committed to the rural electric program?
Not really. I'd say it was just a passing thing for him, probably.
What you want to speculate at all on the politics involved in selecting somebody? Because previously you'd had a couple people who were pretty fiercely committed to the program, and
yeah. See, this is what they, and then tell me his name. You may have it down. Who's the next one?
Debbie Tom Fennell yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Tom was good, but and I can't remember how long he was in there either.
Quite a few years, wasn't it? And he had been the Highliner editor, right?
Yeah. He
was he in your office?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom and Irene. Now they're both dead. God, isn't that awful? Yeah.
There's a number of people I would have liked to have been able to interview for this project.
They what?
Said a number of people I would have liked to have interviewed for this project.
He'd been a good one, yeah. He and Irene, his wife, had gone together since they were in 6th grade. And then he went in the service and came back, and then they were finally married. And they had 5 girls and then a boy.
Okay.
And the one girl still lives here. So I have kept in touch with her. Yeah.
Well, as long as we're talking about kids, how about your family?
I just have one.
Just one?
Yeah, I had 2. The older boy, the one up there, was, unbeknownst to us, he had a heart condition. And he took medication, which they could do at that time. And so he was getting ready for an air show, which he loved. And he went up one day, and we know now that, well, from what the doctor said too, that he knew he was having one of these spells. So he brought the plane down, and he was dead. Yeah.
Wow. And the other?
And the other one lives in Omaha area. He's with First Data Resources.
Okay.
He has 2 boys. One's a pilot with Southwest.
Okay.
The other one's in high school.
Do you have any great-grandchildren yet?
Nope.
Not yet, huh? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Let's go back to some of the other people. You talked about Virgil Handlin. How about Art Jones? Did you have to deal with him?
He's a great guy, sure. He's from my area. Yeah.
Was he related at all to your husband?
No.
There were a lot of Joneses up in that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Ken Holum, also from up in that area.
Yeah, that's right, from the Groton area. Yeah. Nice guy. Yeah. Great. Yeah, he did a lot for the program, too.
Okay. How about politicians? Who are some helpful politicians, at least from your viewpoint, both here nationally or at the state level here? People that you and the program tended to view as good friends.
I have to stop and think. I know we used them all. Yeah. Give me a hint. I can't even.
I don't know, Senator McGovern?
Oh, yeah. Very good. Yeah.
I've talked to some people. Carl Munt, was he helpful or not?
I think yes. I know he was. He helped a lot, I'm sure.
Were there any politicians that were not favorable to the program? What about Governor Farrar? Were you here when there was that?
I'd almost forgotten about that.
Cost him his job.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. They worked him, though. I know. We always said that. I think Art probably had something to do with that too, because that was from the same area. Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, you get into the 1970s, and there's some of this national issues like the effort to, the attacks on the program from the Nixon administration.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you ever go on one of the Washington lobbying trips?
Yeah, I did. I went to Washington twice every year.
You did? Every year? Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't remember the years now.
Okay.
But we'd always go in May for the rally. And of course I coordinated all the travel and all that. That's why I went, really. And then you had time to visit on your own, which was good. And you'd go to any functions. And people would come in, from all over the state for the rally and go in. And it was good, I think. I think it helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you try to visit all the congressional offices?
Yeah, always.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd always have I think as I remember, it was a breakfast or a lunch, and they'd all be included, and then you'd have your own people there who'd know some of them, you know what I mean, personally, and that helped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, that was one part of your job. What other things did you do over the years? What was your role?
Well, I was administrative assistant, more or less, and it was coordinating activities and all that. And it was just great.
Were the annual meetings always out here at Pier once the organization moved from here on out here?
Yeah.
And then you would have delegates coming in from Was that during the legislative session back in those days?
Well, sometimes we did.
Yeah, you were back in those days. It was like every other year legislature.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you retire then?
20 years ago, I think. Yeah, I have to stop and think which year it was. What is his? Yeah, I worked for 34 years, so it was 68. When I retired.
Okay, so you retired. Was Tom still?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd forgotten that. I don't know. I got fraud. And I can remember Tom said, "Why don't you wait another year and then we'll retire together?" And I said, "No, I think it's better if I go out now, and then you can retire the next year." And that's what we did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the most memorable achievement? What did you feel best about when you retired, about all the stuff you'd been involved in over the years?
Well, I think it was probably being able to work, really, the East and the West to keep them together. There's a lot of that you had to kind of hope that you could do. And I feel maybe we did. And I know Tom was good at that, too, so... Yeah, it's a great program.
Here's a kind of a more generalized co-op question. You spent a lot of years working for co-ops. What do you like about cooperatives as opposed to other kinds of businesses?
Well, I think it's a general feeling a good feeling of the people. That's what I feel. It's just a people's organization. And I can remember the days when I remember hearing, well, I don't like co-ops, but the rural electrics are different. How are they different? Try to explain that.
There were people around the state who thought co-ops were maybe some sort of communist organization.
Yeah, I can remember hearing that. You don't hear that anymore, do you?
No.
Or do you?
No.
Isn't that funny? And now that you mention it, I thought of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard that a lot. I don't like co-ops, but the rural electrics are okay. They probably wanted a line brought in.
Now, do you think that there is any way that there would have been electricity brought to farms if it hadn't been, if the cooperative approach hadn't been used?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of. I think it had to be that way.
You know,
Yeah.
would have been difficult for a company to see a profit.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
they wouldn't have done it if
Yeah,
they didn't see
that's
that.
exactly right. You hit that.
Yeah. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they could have accessed the money early on if the loan funds, couldn't they? If
Yeah, they could have, sure.
And they never did.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's right. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. So you're retired here. You're only a couple blocks from the office. Do you keep in contact?
Oh
with
yeah,
them?
yeah. We have a good relationship, and of course, I still have my health insurance there,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Oh, sure.
big item now.
Yeah. 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 So.
And they always ask me to any functions, So.
Okay.
But there are less and less people that I really know. I mean, when you go even to a statewide meeting, because after 20 years, it makes a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The old timers are retired or dead.
Yeah. 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 When do you start collecting pigs, which there are a lot of around
Well,
here?
I don't know. It was just something I did. There's a picture of me up there with. Oh, I'll have to show it to you.
Yeah, okay.
And somebody asked about this one day. There, right there. That was on the farm.
Oh, okay.
And I raised a runt. My dad gave me one.
Uh-huh.
And I can remember I sold it for $14.
Okay.
And I wanted a ukulele, so I ordered it out of the Sears catalog. And I was strummed away at it a little bit. And my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, did something, I don't know what, and I hit her over the head with it and broke the ukulele.
Oh.
But I've always kind of liked pigs.
Okay, now, well, how many do you have? It
I
looks like
don't
a lot
know.
of them around here.
There's more in there, too.
Oh, yeah, all the next...
And the bedroom has a whole
Yeah.
bunch, too.
Okay.
Oh, it's just a thing
Mm-hmm.
I do. There's my 2 grandchildren. That's younger Dave. Oh, here they
Yeah.
are.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
They're on the bottom is probably.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
my family
Okay.
right there.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Very nice.
And there's part of the family back there. Here. Oh, there's my husband and
Mm-hmm.
the 2 sons and my mother-in-law.
Okay.
And there's the son who's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one who's dead, and there's my husband. Somebody at the State Fair did that. What do you call it? Pencil.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, sketch of him. Yeah. This was
Okay.
one of a boy that was born and died in 2 years before my husband was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now your husband is...
What, the name you mean?
No, is he still living?
No. He's been dead for 10 years.
10 years,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're almost done here. What kind of advice? You give advice to anybody?
No, I
What
try
kind of
not
advice
to.
would you give? If somebody asks you about getting involved maybe in the rural electric program,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you thought about maybe applying for a job and thought they might like to
Oh,
be
yeah.
a leader, what would you say to them?
Oh, well, I think it's great, yeah. Now, it's well established and an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it would depend on what the background was, too, Some people are just looking for a job sometimes, not really interested.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You think that there are less people who are idealistic about it today, those kind of things today, as opposed to what
Well,
there
it's
were
different,
40
yeah.
or 50 years ago?
Yeah, I think that's true, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that that the customers in the country today understand
What
the program and how they
Well,
got it to the extent that they did or in earlier years?
I don't know for sure about that, but I would hope that their educational programs will help, take care of that situation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've asked some of the people in the rural electric program, I guess, another question, and that is, do you think that what was accomplished 50 and 60 years ago in getting the program started, do you think that could be done today if it didn't exist already?
It might be difficult, yeah. Of course, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's just real hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard. It's almost hard to imagine the countryside without electricity.
That's right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Would you describe yourself as an optimist or a pessimist?
Oh no, I'm an optimist.
Okay.
You have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people have said that.
Yeah.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to talk about? Any stories you remember about that were interesting?
No, I think I've
probably
mentioned a few along the way, and I can't think of anything in particular right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've been visiting with Eunice Jones. Thank you for your participation in the Cooperative Legacy Project.
Oh yeah, thank you. Well, I'll have to show you I'll go get it. They all